Hello, Lucy and Acadia. I'm going to read a video book to you today. This is the second half of The Kingdom of Wrenly. Let the games begin. Turn the camera around. There we go. Zoom, 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 zoom. Okay. And you guys remember the first half, I'm sure, because you probably have listened to it recently. Here's the cover of it. Let the games begin. There's King Lucas, and that's Clara. See this word? It's Wrenly. W-R-E-N-L-Y. The Kingdom of Wrenly. Let the games begin. And I'm sure you remember what happened in the first half last time. There are going to be some tournament games, jousting and other things that knights do in the Kingdom of Wrenly. And Prince Lucas is really interested in this. And he really admires a knight named Sir Hugh. And Sir Hugh has a page, that's like an assistant to a knight, named Gilbert. And so Gilbert befriends Prince Lucas. And Prince Lucas is practicing for the tournament. Clara wants to participate, but Gilbert is very dismissive of Clara because Clara's a girl, so Clara kind of gets mad about that. And anyway, then Prince Lucas and Clara wind up at her father's bakery, and they're making some cookies. And that's where we pick up. They're at the bakery making some cookies. And we're up to chapter 6, which is called The Mermaid's Gift. So we're going to see some mermaids. On guard, shouted Clara. That's how you begin a sword fight. You say on guard to warn your opponent that you're beginning to fight. Lucas and Clara dueled with 2 freshly baked cookie swords. See, they're dueling. That means they're having a pretend fight. And they have some cookies that they made to be shaped like swords. Clara swiped her sword across Lucas's blade. The tip of his sword broke off and landed on the floor. Ruskin, that's the dragon, gobbled it up. Touché, Lucas cried. Clara laughed. Mr. Gills whistled through his fingers. No sword fights in the bakery, he said. Take it outside. I have a lot of baking to do before the tournament. Sorry, Clara said. Then she turned to Lucas. You want to go to Mermaid's Cove and make sandcastles? Sure, answered Lucas. They untied their aprons and ran out. Clara grabbed a bucket on the way. Ruskin squawked and raced after them. Wham! Wham! The door banged shut and the bells jangled harshly. Mr. Gills shook his head and chuckled. Those kids. Race you, shouted Clara. They ran down the lane and onto a narrow path that led to the beach. In a couple of minutes, Clara was out of breath. You win, she said. They walked the rest of the way. What are you looking forward to at the tournament? Asked Clara. Jousting, said Lucas. What about you? That's where you're on your horses and you run at each other with your pretend lances and try to score points. The horse race, said Clara. Okay, so Clara wants to be in the horse race. Did you decide to sign up? Asked Lucas. I did, said Clara. After Gilbert made fun of me, I no longer minded being the only girl to race. Are you going to enter Ivan? I can't, said Lucas. Ivan threw a shoe. That means his shoe came off. His horseshoe came off. I can't ride him until he gets a new one, and all the blacksmiths are too busy with the tournament right now. That's too bad, Clara said. It stinks, said Lucas, but at least I'll get to watch you. The friends jumped off a boulder and onto the beach. Then they walked along the water's edge. As they rounded the rocks onto Mermaid's Cove, Clara gasped. Look, she cried, pointing up ahead. There they are. Look! Wow, look at that. I wonder what they're looking at. Lucas saw a large mound of seashells piled at the shore. They shimmered in the sun. There they are, seashells. Clara and Lucas ran toward the shells. "The mermaids left them," exclaimed Clara. "This must be their gift for the tournament." The mermaids often left treasures for Clara. They knew she loved to make seashell jewelry. Clara set her bucket on the sand. Together, Clara and Lucas filled it with beaded periwinkles, scallops, angel wings, spiral cone shells, and pink sand dollars. Those are different types of shells. "My bucket's already full," Clara cried. "I have an idea," said Lucas. He took off his cape and laid it on the beach. "Put some in here," he suggested. Her bucket's full. So they're going to hold some in his cape. They placed the rest of the shells on the cape, often stopping to admire the beauty of a shell as they worked. Then Lucas gently wrapped his cape around the delicate shells. He picked it up and it bulged like a sack of gold. "We must have 1,000 shells," he exclaimed. "I'll string them tonight," said Clara. "Then we can hang shell garlands around the arena tomorrow." Then they carefully walked back to Clara's with their sea treasures from the sea. Okay, so they're walking back to Clara's house. They have their sea treasures. Chapter 7. See, that's how you string shells. You make a tiny hole in the shells and you put a little thread through them, and you make a necklace or something where you can hang the shells on them. I've seen that done before. They can be pretty, and you can put different types of maybe nail polish on some of the shells to make them sparkle. It can be very beautiful. Not him again. Clara strung the mermaid shells the rest of the day. The next morning, she loaded her garlands, that means like a necklace with shells on them, onto a wheelbarrow. Lucas steered the wheelbarrow to the blacksmith shop and borrowed a hammer and nails. Then they rolled their decorations to the arena. Lucas pounded nails into the fence that surrounded the arena. Clara dropped the shell garlands from one nail to the next. She draped the shell garlands. That's draped. D-R-A-P-E-D. Draped. If it were dropped, it would be D-R-O-P-P-E-D, but it's draped. She draped the shell garlands from one nail to the next. You can see them in the picture there. She had enough strands to make it all the way around. Okay, all the way around the arena. That's a lot of shells. That's a lot of work to string that many. "How did the mermaids know exactly how many shells were needed?" said Clara in amazement. "Because mermaids are magical," said someone behind them. Lucas and Clara whirled around, and there stood Gilbert. He had come back with the knights for another practice. Clara frowned. "Oh no," she thought, "not him again." Gilbert bowed to Prince Lucas, because Lucas is a prince. Then he turned to Clara and began to clap, as if she had just performed some kind of stunt. "Well done," he remarked. "I'm glad to see you found an activity more fitting for a girl." Ooh, that's kind of condescending, isn't it? Clara glared at Gilbert. "What's that supposed to mean?" she said. Gilbert chuckled at Clara's response. "Calm down," he said. "I was trying to give you a compliment. Are you going to sell seashells at the tournament?" "That's none of your business," Clara said curtly. She didn't want to admit to Gilbert that she liked anything girly. "Clara makes the most beautiful seashell jewelry in the kingdom," said Lucas proudly. "I'm sure she does," Gilbert exclaimed. It's a troll there, isn't it? Or something. Looks like a troll. "Never mind that," said Clara. Then she challenged the squire. "Are you entering the horse race, Gilbert?" "Of course," he replied. "Well, so am I," Clara declared. Gilbert laughed so hard he snorted like a pig. "That's the funniest thing I've ever heard," he said. "Why is that funny?" asked Clara, tapping one foot in the dirt. "Because girls can't race," Gilbert said matter-of-factly. That's what you think, she exclaimed. Then she balled up her fists and marched away from the arena. Again. Clara, wait, called Lucas. Come back. But Clara kept going. I'll show him, she muttered as she stormed past the festival tents. Chapter 8. Prove yourself. See, it's one thing to talk big, but then you have to back it up with action. Prove yourself. Flutes, just like going across on the monkey bars, it's one thing to talk about how you can go back and forth on the monkey bars all the way without stopping or without falling. It's another thing to actually do it. Flutes piped merrily as Lucas, Ruskin, and Clara entered the tournament at the King's Gate. The big day had finally arrived. The villagers, noblemen, fairies, trolls, gnomes, and wizards had all gathered for the festivities. Lucas, Ruskin, and Clara walked to the bakery tent. Mr. Gills handed them each a sweet roll. Oh, that sounds so good. They licked the icing on the way to the puppet theater. Then they sat on a bale of hay and watched a puppet show about a princess and an evil king. There was so much to see at the tournament. They saw acrobats, potters, those are people that make pots on a spinning piece of wood. They have wet clay, and you spin the wet clay on a piece of wood, and you make pottery. Maybe we'll show you that sometime if you haven't already seen it. It's very interesting. And glass blowers. So they have acrobats, potters, and glass blowers. They sipped rainbow tea at the fairies' tea party. Then the girls strolled to the fruits and vegetables tent. A troll juggled tomatoes. He's juggling the tomatoes. He's throwing them up, catching them, throwing them up, and one landed on his head. Splat! A tomato landed on the troll's head. Lucas laughed and pointed. Hey, that's our friend Bren, he cried. Bren had helped Clara and Lucas fix the Vicks berries that had cured Ruskin of a terrible illness soon after he had hatched. Okay, that's another story. We haven't read that story yet. So apparently when Ruskin was born, he was very sick and he had to have some Vicks berries. And Bran, the troll, helped them with that. Okay, Bran's cheeks turned red when he saw his friends. He used the back of his hand to wipe the squished tomato from his face. When did you learn to juggle? Asked Clara. Bren chuckled. Last year, he said. Someday I hope to become a master juggler. But I thought you were a farmer, said Lucas. I am, said Bren, but I'd like to be a jester. That's someone who entertains at the court for the king and the queen and all the noble people. Good for you, declared Clara. You can be anything you want, Bren, so long as you work hard enough for it. Bren smiled and picked out 5 apples from a nearby stand. He began to juggle them. That's exactly what I'm going to do, he said, keeping his eyes on the dancing fruit. I'm going to prove myself. Practice, practice, practice. They watched Bren toss the fruit over and over. Then a bell rang in the distance. Clara counted the number of bells. It's time to get Scallop ready for the race, she said excitedly. It starts in an hour. I'll see you at the arena, Lucas said. Good luck, added Bren. Clara fixed her eyes on the boys. I'm going to prove myself too, she said firmly. Then she turned and ran toward the stables. Be your best. Okay. Does anybody remember the name of Clara's horse? Remember, she got a horse from the king because she was the one who helped to find the missing emerald. Okay, well, we're probably going to find the horse in a few. I don't remember, but I remember she got a horse. Oh, I do remember the name, but I'm not going to tell you in case you don't remember. Lucas and Ruskin wandered the fairgrounds. Okay, so Lucas and Ruskin are walking around. Clara ran back to get her horse because she's going to be in the horse race. They had a little time before Lucas would have to drop Ruskin off at the dragon pen. They cheered on the gnomes in a tug-of-war match. Tug-of-war. See, this is tug-of-war. You see that? What's happening there? You have some people who get at one end of a rope and people who get at the other end of a rope, and then they pull on the rope and they try to pull the other team across a line. It's called tug of war. Their friend Pillwinkle and his team tumbled to the ground as they pulled the other team over the line. Okay, so Pillwinkle won. After that, Ruskin watched Lucas play a game of jack straws, a gigantic version of pickup sticks. Then they scampered toward the ice house. "Remember when you melted the ice in the larder?" said Lucas, laughing. Ruskin whimpered. "We got in so much trouble." Okay, Ruskin breathed fire on the ice and he melted it and he got in trouble. Then they stepped into the ice house. The cold air felt good. That's where they keep all the ice that they bring down from the north, so it keeps things cold. All around them stood the most beautiful ice sculptures Lucas had ever seen. See, these are all ice sculptures. Somebody carved these with ice. You're looking at them. Whew, beautiful. Elephants, mammoths, mermaids, unicorns, knights, and dragons. "Look, Ruskin," cried Lucas, "the giants even made an ice sculpture of us." See, there's an ice sculpture of Prince Lucas and Ruskin. Lucas looked for someone to thank, but he knew the giants never stayed for the tournament. It was too warm for them near the castle so far beneath the icy mountains. Okay, so the giants just hang out in the mountains, but they brought some ice sculptures as a gift. "Come on, Ruskin," said Lucas. "We need to get going." Lucas dropped Ruskin off at the dragon pen. Ruskin had to get ready for the dragon show. When Lucas went to meet his parents at the fruits, then Lucas went to meet his parents at the vegetables tent. He spied them by the pumpkin display. There we go. There's King Caleb. They're looking at the pumpkins, and there's the queen. Ooh. "I've never seen such large pumpkins in all of Wrenly," commented Queen Tasha. "We owe our beautiful crops to the witch of Bogburp." We owe our beautiful crops to the witch of Bogburp. Ooh, a witch. Ooh, I wonder if you're going to look like that in your witch outfit for Halloween, Acadia. Maybe. I think you have a hat that goes straight up instead of one that goes back down. He tipped his hat to Tilda, the witch, who was standing nearby. "She definitely has made up for the endless rain she caused earlier," the troll went on. "Our soil has never been richer." "Well done," said the king. The witch blushed. Then she offered the king an apple from the fairy's apple orchard. "My favorite," said the king as he took a large bite. The royal family sampled carrots, pears, cucumbers, and radishes. Okay, so the witch helped with the vegetables, and now they're sampling all the vegetables and the tomatoes and the fruits. Then they handed out ribbons for the biggest and the best tasting fruits and vegetables. See, that's what you might have at a fair in olden times. People bring in their best crops and the biggest pumpkins and the reddest tomatoes and the longest carrots and all that stuff, and people get awards for the best looking fruit and vegetables. Soon the horns began to trumpet. The tournament was about to begin. Lucas and his parents headed for the grandstand. "I'm sorry you and Ivan can't race today," said the king. "That's okay," said Lucas. "At least I get to cheer on Clara and Gilbert." See, Clara, his friend, and Gilbert the page are both racing. The king smiled. "You're a good sport," he said. "Thanks," said Lucas. "But the best part of the tournament is watching what others can do." The king patted his son on the back. "That's what it's all about," said the king. There they are. They're walking to the grandstand. Chapter 10, The Big Race. The Big Race. See, here it is. T-H-E. The Big. B-I-G. Race. R-A-C-E. The Big Race. "Hear ye, hear ye! It's time for the tournament to begin," shouted a herald to signal the start of the games. Then the dragons of Crestwood, red, green, purple, blue, and bronze, roared. The crowd looked up as the dragons flapped overhead in a V formation. There they go. They're the dragons flapping overhead. Ruskin led the way. Okay, that's Ruskin in front. The dragons swooped into loops, rolls, and spins, all in unison. They even flew upside down in formation. Then the dragons shot straight up and fanned out like the petals of a flower. The crowd whooped and cheered. Okay, they're putting on a show up in the air, flying around in formation. That means everybody's doing the same thing at the same time, and they're holding all together like they're just one big thing, all flying at once. "Go, Ruskin!" cried Lucas. "Bravo!" shouted the king. Then the horns sounded again. The individual jousting began. The Knight of Thornwood and the Knight of Briarwood paraded into the arena in bulky, shining armor. They held their shields proudly. Remember who the Knight of Thornwood is? That's Sir Hugh. Sir Hugh had a lion on his shield. Sir Alwyn, that's the Knight of Briarwood, Sir Alwyn, wore a bear on his. Okay, that's the shield. That's Sir Hugh's shield, and that's Sir Alwyn's shield. The crowd hushed as the knights took their places at opposite ends of the arena. The horses tossed their heads and stamped the ground. The knights sat stock still on their steeds. They pointed their lances and peered at each other through the slits in their helmets. They're jousting. Suddenly, the horses charged toward each other. The knights gripped their lances. Hooves thundered across the arena. That's hooves thundering across the arena. Lucas braced for the impact. Then, whack! Wood splintered everywhere as Sir Hugh slammed his opponent's shield with his lance. Sir Alwyn hit the ground with a clatter. There he is, Sir Alwyn. Sir Hugh won the match. Lucas jumped to his feet and cheered with the crowd. Sir Hugh took a victory lap. Then, like a gentleman, he helped Sir Alwyn get up. Sir Alwyn waved to the crowd to show that he was unharmed. The crowd cheered even louder. Someday I will be the best knight, thought Lucas. Team jousting and sword fighting followed. The squires played grab the flag, and Gilbert's team took first place. Then it was time for the horse race. This is the big event. Lucas sat on his hands to keep from jumping out of his seat. The young horseman, as well as the lone horsewoman, lined up at the starting line. Oh, come on, Clara. There's Clara. There's Gilbert. She's got kind of a mean look on her face. She's really determined. He's been very condescending to her. He hasn't intentionally been mean to her, but he has been. He just assumes that she's just a girl. She can't do anything. "Clara's only a girl," remarked the king. "That's right," said Lucas proudly. Oh, I'm sorry. The king says, "Clara's the only girl." That's a lot different than saying Clara's only a girl. He says, "Clara's the only girl." "That's right," Lucas said proudly. "Good for her," said the queen. Lucas spotted Gilbert. His horse was bigger and had longer legs than Scallop. Scallop, that's Scallop. Remember Scallop? He'll be tough to beat, thought Lucas. Then the arena grew quiet. Gilbert folded his long legs close to his horse's sides. He flattened his lean frame along the horse's back. Clara did the same. He's getting ready to race, getting into position, leaning over so the wind doesn't slow him down. A herald blew the horn. I'm sorry, let me try that again. That's the herald blowing the horn. Gilbert shot from the starting line. Whoa, thought Lucas, he's fast. Gilbert easily took the lead. Lucas kept his eyes on Clara and Scallop. They moved like one being. That means the horse and the horsewoman were just like one big animal. They were all coordinated. Gilbert and Clara left the other riders behind in a cloud of dust. They rode shoulder to shoulder as they thundered toward the finish line. The crowd roared as Clara crossed the line first. There she is. There's Clara. She did it, Lucas shouted. She sure did, exclaimed the queen. Wow, cried the king, clapping. People poured from the grandstand and surrounded Clara. Her parents wriggled their way through the crowd to give their daughter a hug. Then Sir Hugh crowned Clara with a wreath of flowers. First place goes to Clara Gills, announced the knight. The crowd clapped and cheered. Lucas whistled. You must come train with me when you're older, said Sir Hugh. Clara's eyes filled with wonder. I would be most honored, she cried. Then Gilbert held out his hand. I was wrong about you, Clara, he said thoughtfully. You've proven that you can do anything you set your mind to. You will make a fine knight. Clara shook his hand and smiled. Actually, I'm not really sure if I want to be a knight, she confessed. Gilbert looked surprised. You don't? No, said Clara. The armor looks too heavy and clunky. King Caleb laughed. It is. 3 cheers for Clara, cried Lucas, and everyone cheered in celebration. The end. Wow. Okay. That was it. There's the another picture of the games, and that was the Kingdom of Wrenly. Let the games begin, and I enjoyed hearing the end of that story. Just remember what Clara taught you. You can do anything, but the other part of that is if you work hard enough. You're not going to do anything if you don't work hard enough. It takes work, and it takes determination, but if you have both of those things, you can do anything. Bye-bye, girls.